Groaning for glory. We'll be getting to the biblical text in just a few moments. But to review some parts of Scripture that I believe many of you are very familiar with, we start at the beginning. The beginning, in which we read, "In the beginning, God." And your mind already goes to what we read there in Genesis 1. The week of creation. And after every day, the comment is made, and God saw that it was good. And God saw that it was good day by day, as the artistry and the creative genius of God is expressed in a very intentional sequence, each day building upon the next. By the time we come to the end of the week, God saw all that had been made, and it was just good, very good. And what a variety God displayed in His creative genius. Everything from elephants to butterflies, and so much in between as well. But God did not create the world to be only a natural sanctuary, an animal preserve, such as we enjoy seeing either on site or in photographs. The world was created for human beings. Towards the end of chapter 1 of Genesis, we read that God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground." The world was created for you and me. The very next that we read is that God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female, He created them. And then He gave them instructions and gave them an orientation to this beautiful, beautiful home that He had provided. "Be fruitful and multiply," said the Creator. These were words of blessing. "Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over every living thing that moves on the earth." The earth was created for us, created for human beings. It is their home. It is their joy, their delight. And as we notice in Scripture periodically, down through the centuries of sacred writings, we discover that we were actually created to be a reflection of the glory of God. As Isaiah says in his 43rd chapter, "Everyone who is called by my name, whom I have created for my glory, I have formed him. Yes, I have made him." And what is one of those aspects that is representative of the glory of God? I believe that it is accurate when the book Education states that in every human being created in the image of God, human beings have been endowed with a power akin to that of the Creator, with individuality, the power to think and to do. Just as the Creator thinks and does, He gave to the human family the ability, the capacity to think and to do. And it is exactly that got us into trouble. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, the deceptions that were presented there, the decisions that were made, the consequences which followed. And in a statement given to the deceiver himself. The Creator says, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle. And then, in a strange proclamation, the Creator says, cursed is the ground for your sake. Cursed is the ground for your sake? We'll come back to that in a moment. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth. Not only is the ground itself dirt, clay, rock, gravel, sand, whatever we may think of as being ground cursed, but it was symbolic of the entire natural order receiving a curse. You will remember that the thorn was a symbol of the curse. So that when we jump forward to the time of Jesus, as he is on trial and has been condemned to death, we read there that the Roman soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And then later the apostle reflects on Jesus bearing the curse. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, we read in Galatians chapter 3, having become a curse for us. And without using the word curse, but utilizing the reality of it, the apostle states elsewhere in 2 Corinthians 5, he made him who knew no sin to become sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. No curse, and in the end, we read in Revelation 22 that there shall be no more curse. No more curse in the new heavens and the new earth. The human race began life without a curse. And it will transition into a new era, the new heavens and the new earth, curse-less. But now, in between, we live with the curse. We've already gone from Genesis to Revelation. But let's go back now and spend a little bit of time in Romans chapter 8. And Father, now as we look at the main scripture passage for our consideration today, we open up our minds and our hearts, and we ask that you will mingle with us both mentally and emotionally, that we may receive what you desire for us to gain. We pray this in Jesus' name, and it is for his sake. Amen. In Romans chapter 8, we read this, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly because of him who subjected it. Not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself would be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for the adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. There's a lot in these very, very significant, challenging statements that the apostle has made in Romans chapter 8. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glories which shall be revealed in us. Really? The sufferings of this present time in car accidents that mangle bodies and take lives, sufferings at this present time that result in tornadoes that flatten out communities and again take life, sufferings that occur in fires that destroy buildings, homes, and businesses, as well as natural areas, sufferings that come in the form of tsunamis who devastate entire communities, sufferings that take place in cancer, sufferings that take place with stroke, sufferings that take place with heart attacks, sufferings that take place with war, sufferings that take place with assault, with birth abnormalities, with fetal demise. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time, abuse in all of its forms, rape, trafficking, are not worthy to be compared with the glories which shall be revealed in us. Is that a challenging claim for us to get our arms around, our minds around, our emotions around? Thank you for being honest. It's a challenge. It's difficult. Why is it some that have healthy, vibrant, beautiful babies, but others suffer the tragedy of dreams that will never be fulfilled by that one that they hold lifeless in their arms? I don't know of very many who escape suffering in this life. It's not a matter of if, it's when and what kind and how severe will it be. You recall that when Mary and Joseph took their son Jesus to the temple to be dedicated, the prophet Simeon spoke to them that this son of theirs was destined for the rise and the fall of many. And then he added those cryptic words, "A sword will pierce through your soul also, Mary." To be human is to be vulnerable to suffering. Theologian John Piper tries to answer the why question, the why of suffering. He says this: God put the natural world under a curse so that the physical horror we see around us would become a vivid picture of how horrible sin is. And so we read just a few moments ago that the whole creation groans. But do we realize how horrible sin is? Do we have eyes to see, yet we do not see? Ironically, the apostle states that the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hope that creation itself would be set free from the bondage to corruption. Are you asking the question? Who subjected it? It's only referred to with the pronoun he. Was it the Creator that subjected it? Or was it Adam who subjected it? Obviously, Adam was the agent of subjection, as he consciously chose. The woman was deceived, Eve was deceived, but Adam went into it with his eyes wide open. Maybe the pronoun actually has a dual reference, both to Adam and the Creator. Because in reality, Even though Adam made the decisive decision, God allowed that decision to be made because he had given him the power to think and to do. The creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. The book Patriarchs and Prophets has some interesting comments that are relevant here. It was not the will of God that the sinless pair should know aught of evil. He had freely given them the good and had withheld the evil. But contrary to his command, they had eaten of the forbidden tree, and now they would continue to eat of it. They would have the knowledge of evil all the days of their life. Under the curse of sin, all nature was witness to man of the character and results of rebellion against God. So long as Adam remained loyal to heaven, all nature was in subjection to him. But when he rebelled against the divine law, the inferior creatures were in rebellion against his rule. Thus, the Lord, in his great mercy, would show men the sacredness of his law and lead them by their own experience to see the danger of setting it aside, even in the slightest degree. As Genesis 3 commented, the Creator said, "The ground is cursed for your sake." So we have tragedy and destruction, disaster, loss, death, and it reminds us of the curse. But it also points us to a future free of the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the sons of God. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits. Earnest expectation. It's a very rich biblical word, which is actually a combination of three concepts or three parts. Speaking of away, apo, kara, meaning head, and dokia, to wait. And it gives us the picture of waiting with the head outstretched. I'm straining to see the future when this will arrive. One commentator writes this: turning away from all else and fixing the eyes upon a single object, waiting with the head raised and the eye fixed on that point of the horizon from which the expected object is to come. Am I waiting with that much eager anticipation to be delivered from this curse, this bondage of corruption, and to be freed into the glorious liberty? To be honest, I'm probably not as eager as I should be. Are you eager? Unless my life has been invaded, assaulted with some kind of tragedy, and then we cry out, "Oh God, please come soon." And really, that's what it's designed to do. It's to wake us up. The creation groans, and the creation is eagerly waiting. The creation is personified in these verses as if it has some type of personality, the power to think and do. It doesn't, but it's referred to in that manner. The creation will be delivered from corruption into the glorious liberty to come. Now, we're familiar with those texts. We've already kind of thought about some of them in our consciousness as you're mulling all this around in your thoughts, 2 Peter chapter 3, we, according to his promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. And of course, most of us are familiar with Revelation 21. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Creation is groaning for that to become a reality, about being released from sin. But are we groaning? Or is life too good? And so we become fixated upon the here and the now. The apostle states in testimony form, not only is the creation groaning, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we are groaning inwardly as we wait eagerly for the adoption of sons as the redemption of our bodies. When you come to the end of the day, and when I come to the end of the day, am I groaning about my lack of living fully to the glory of God, that I may have misrepresented him today, and it pains me deeply that I have fallen short of his glory? Or do I kind of gloss over that reality? Am I even aware of that reality? Romans 8, of course, is preceded by Romans 7. And really, to get the full context of what we're focusing on specifically here in Romans 8, it's helpful to go back and read some of the testimony from the apostle in the 7th chapter. He says, I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, nothing good dwells, for to will is present with me, but how to perform what is good I do not find. I delight in the law of God according to the inward man, but I see another law in my members warring against the law of my mind. There's a personal internal struggle that is going. There's a tug of war. There's a push and a pull. And at the end of chapter 7, he says, who is going to deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to the Lord, Jesus Christ. And then, as if there's no chapter division, the apostle says, there is no condemnation for those who belong to Christ Jesus. And because you belong to him, the power of the life-giving Spirit has freed you from the power of sin that leads to death. Those who are dominated by the sinful nature think about sinful things, but those who are controlled by the Holy Spirit think about things that please the Spirit. So letting your sinful nature control your mind leads to death, but letting the Spirit control your mind leads to life and peace. Oh, my brothers and sisters, that we would groan more often and more deeply about the sin that is in our lives. That we would be eagerly awaiting for the adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies, waiting with our heads outstretched, looking intently at the horizon for the second coming of Jesus. Probably not going to happen today. Contrary to some of those in another faith community who think that Jesus could come secretly at any moment and we might not even conclude this worship service, we know from prophecy that there will be things that take place. And that the coming of Jesus will be an unmistakable, unmissable, universal event. But until that happens, we have the opportunity to grow in groaning. How do we do that? Desire of Ages, page 668, gives us great insight to this. When we know God, as it is our privilege to know Him, our life will be a life of continual obedience. Through an appreciation of the character of Christ, through communion with God, sin will become hateful to us. Oh, God, give me more. But the only way I can accept and receive more is if I know God more. Does that make sense? Philippians chapter 3, another personal testimony from the apostle. I also count all things lost for the excellence of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and count them as rubbish, that I may gain Christ, that I may know Him and the power of His resurrection and the fellowship of His sufferings, being conformed to His death, if by any means I may attain the resurrection from the dead. My brothers and sisters, suffering has a purpose. And that purpose is to lead us to groan for glory. And to groan for the glory that will outweigh the suffering. So I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. I don't know what heaven is going to be like. We have some descriptions in Scripture. We read those passages that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man, what God has prepared for those who love Him. We take by faith this statement from the apostle that whatever we experience here in this chapter of our lives, this 60, 70, 80 plus years, whatever suffering we experience, and I say this with some trepidation because some have suffered greatly, but in the scope of glory and in the scope of eternity, glory will outweigh suffering. Everyone who's called by my name, whom I have created for my glory, I have formed him. Yes, I have made him. God is in the process of doing His glorious work in us even now. Our role is to continue to hope. We were saved in this hope. We hope for what we do not see. We eagerly wait for it with patience, realizing that suffering has a purpose. It is to lead us to groan for glory, glory that will outweigh all the suffering we have experienced.